Welcome to our deep dive into optimizing business processes, and today we're tackling SharePoint Online and Power Apps. You sent us some really interesting stuff, so we've really gone through all of it, and we're so excited to break down all the most fascinating parts with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this topic. This combination can really change things for businesses who are looking for those flexible and powerful solutions.
Okay, so let's skip the basics and assume you already know what SharePoint Online and Power Apps are. How can they actually work together to simplify things? I'm thinking specifically about those annoying bottlenecks that everyone has to deal with.
You're absolutely right. One of the best things about this combo is data management. SharePoint has this really strong platform for storing all your info, and then Power Apps lets you build custom apps to interact with that data in a way that makes sense for your business.
So it's more than just storage, it's about making your data actually work for you.
Exactly. You aren't stuck using these pre-built apps that don't really address your needs. You can create solutions that fit perfectly into your workflows.
That's so powerful, especially for businesses with unique processes or very specific data management needs. But are there any limitations to this approach? What about potential data silos if everything's only in SharePoint?
That's such a good question, and it shows how important planning and integration are. So SharePoint is great for centralizing data, but you have to make sure it talks to the other systems you use. Power Automate, for example, can be really important for coordinating data flows between SharePoint and other apps, which helps prevent those silos you mentioned.
So it's about using these tools strategically as part of a larger ecosystem.
Precisely. Now let's look at some examples to see how this actually works in the real world.
I love that. I know a lot of people struggle with employee onboarding. So much paper.
I know, right? But imagine this. With Power Apps, you can build a whole onboarding portal right inside SharePoint. New hires can access all the forms, documents, and training stuff all in one spot.
That's so much better than digging through emails and files.
And you know what? Studies have shown that this kind of system can actually cut onboarding time in half, which frees up HR to focus on other things.
That's huge. And what about expense reports? I hate those.
We've all been there. But imagine this. Using Power Apps, you can have an app where you just snap a picture of your receipt and it automatically fills out your report.
That sounds amazing. But what about accuracy? Are there any risks of errors with that kind of automation?
That's where things like intelligent data extraction and validation come in. You can actually configure Power Apps to double-check data, flag things that look wrong, and make sure everything is accurate before you send in the report.
So it's not just about speed, it's about combining automation with accuracy.
Exactly. And by streamlining the whole process from start to finish, you reduce processing time and the chance of mistakes. Some companies have even seen a 70% reduction in processing time after setting up similar solutions.
That's insane. It seems like this combo of SharePoint and Power Apps can really take care of those annoying little problems that every business has.
They can, and it's very flexible. We've talked about onboarding and expenses, but the same ideas work for all sorts of things like project management or customer relationship management.
So it's about finding those areas where you can really use these tools to improve efficiency and accuracy.
Exactly. And as we go deeper, we'll talk about some more advanced customization options and security considerations to take things even further.
This is giving me so many ideas. Let's switch gears and talk about security. I know that was a big focus in those YouTube videos you watched, especially the ones by Bert Blevins.
Absolutely. Security is so important, and Bert's insights are invaluable. He talked a lot about how important tools like Delinea are for managing and securing those really critical systems. And what's so cool is that Delinea has features that go beyond the basics, like unlimited admin mode.
Okay, unlimited admin mode. That sounds intense. But isn't that going against the whole principle of least privilege, which is so important for security?
It's not about giving everyone full access. It's about giving admins better control and flexibility while keeping everything secure. It's like a master key, but with extra safety features.
So how does that actually work?
Okay, so imagine this. Admins can do everything they need to manage, secure, and monitor these important systems, but everything they do is logged and tracked. It's like having a safety net in place so that there aren't any accidental mistakes or gaps in security, while also letting admins do their jobs effectively.
That makes sense. It's like finding that sweet spot between control and security. I'm starting to see how these tools can really work together to create a safer and more efficient environment.
Exactly, and we're just scratching the surface here. As we look more at what Delinea can do, we'll uncover even more ways to make things more secure without sacrificing functionality.
Before we get too deep into that, let's talk about customizing SharePoint itself. The articles and videos you sent mentioned some interesting ways to tweak lists and libraries to make them even better. Can you give us an overview?
Oh, definitely. One of the best things about SharePoint is how flexible it is. You can customize lists and libraries to match your specific needs and the way you work.
So where should we start? What are some of the main things you can change?
Well, you can start by adding or changing columns in your lists. Columns are basically the data fields, so you can tailor them to capture the information that's most important for your business. You can also create what are called custom views to display the data in a way that makes sense for your team.
So you're making the data work for you instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
What about Power Apps? Can you use that for customization too?
That's where things get really exciting. Power Apps lets you create custom forms for your SharePoint lists, which makes managing data so much easier and more intuitive. Let's say you have a list for keeping track of project tasks. You could use Power Apps to make a form that highlights overdue tasks or tasks assigned to certain people. It's like having a visual reminder to help prioritize work.
I love that. It's like making the data more actionable.
Yeah.
Seems like there are endless possibilities when it comes to customization.
There really are, and you can take it a step further by connecting those custom forms with Power Automate workflows. For instance, you could set up a workflow that automatically sends someone a notification when a task is assigned to them.
So you're connecting the data, the visuals, and the actions all within SharePoint. It's like creating a little custom ecosystem.
That's a great way to put it. And then there's metadata, which lets you organize and find your data even more effectively.
Oh yeah, metadata. That's so important for managing tons of documents in SharePoint libraries. Can you explain why it's so crucial?
So metadata is basically data about data. It's what helps you categorize and find information more efficiently. Instead of just relying on file names, you can add metadata columns to your libraries, like things like department, project name, document type, keywords, anything that'll help you organize and find information quickly.
So it's like adding labels to your digital files so they're easier to search and sort of...
Exactly. You can easily search for documents based on their content or context thanks to metadata. And SharePoint also lets you use managed metadata, which creates a centralized vocabulary for consistent tagging across your whole organization.
That's a game changer for keeping things consistent and making sure everyone's on the same page when it comes to organizing documents.
It is. And it makes finding information so much easier. But before we get too deep into the world of metadata, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll explore even more ways to customize those SharePoint libraries and dive into some fascinating security insights from those videos with Bert. Welcome back. I'm so ready to dig into some of that more technical stuff we were talking about before the break, especially all that security stuff.
Me too. You were really into Bert Blevins' video on rotating passwords in Red Hat Linux. It seems like such a basic thing, but so many people forget about it.
I know, right? And what's cool is that Bert doesn't just talk about why it's important, he actually shows you how to automate the whole thing in Red Hat Linux.
So he's not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk and giving people the tools to actually do it.
Exactly. He goes step by step using scripts and command line tools to make password rotation just part of the regular routine for system admins.
That's awesome. It takes all the guesswork out and makes it way easier to stay on top of password security. I bet you could adapt this for other Linux versions too, right?
For sure. The main ideas are the same, and you can tweak those scripts to work in other environments.
That's great. It's one thing to talk about security, but it's way more helpful to give people the knowledge to actually make their systems more secure. Speaking of practical security stuff, Bert also had a segment on OAuth OTP MFA. What is that all about?
Okay, so OAuth OTP MFA stands for Open Authentication, Time-Based, One-Time Password, Multi-Factor Authentication. It's a long name, but basically it's a really strong way to make your account safer. It's like adding an extra layer of protection on top of your password.
So it's not just about something, like your password, but also something you have like a code from an app.
Exactly, and OAuth OTP is really great because it works with a lot of different things. Bert actually showed how to set it up with popular apps like Google Authenticator and Authy.
So even though it sounds complicated, it's actually pretty user-friendly.
It is, and it makes a huge difference for security. Even if someone gets your password, they can't get into your account without that one-time code. It really lowers the risk of someone getting in where they shouldn't be.
That peace of mind is so valuable. I'm noticing a theme here with Bert's videos. He's really good at explaining the technical stuff and showing people how to actually put it into practice.
Yeah, and it's not just about individual accounts either. He also talked about cloud identity discovery, which is all about finding hidden risks in cloud environments.
That sounds a little mysterious. Can you explain what he meant?
Imagine you're a detective in the cloud. When businesses move more of their work online, it becomes really important to manage identities and permissions. Cloud identity discovery helps you figure out where you might have vulnerabilities and make sure that only the right people have access to sensitive data and systems.
So it's like taking stock of everything you have in the cloud and making sure it's locked up tight.
Exactly. And Bert pointed out some best practices for doing cloud identity discovery, like figuring out what data is really important, analyzing how people are accessing things, and setting up strong authentication.
That sounds especially crucial now that data breaches are happening all the time.
Oh, absolutely. Organizations need to be proactive about cloud security, and cloud identity discovery is a great place to start. Another thing Bert talked about that really stood out to me was building resilient secrets for disaster recovery.
Okay, resilient secrets. What does that even mean?
It's all about protecting that really important information. Things like passwords, encryption keys, API keys, those things that are vital for getting your systems back up and running if there's a disaster. Like a natural disaster, a cyber attack, or even just human error.
So it's like having a backup plan for your most important information so it's safe no matter what happens.
Precisely. Bert really stressed how important it is to not store these secrets directly in code or configuration files, because that's a really common mistake that makes you vulnerable. He suggested using special tools for managing secrets that provide secure storage, access control, and auditing features.
So basically, treat those secrets like gold and have a system to manage them properly.
Exactly. And don't forget about having a solid backup and recovery plan for your secrets too. If you lose access to those encryption keys, it could be a disaster. It's best to have multiple secure copies, both on-site and in the cloud, just in case.
It seems like Bert has really thought of everything and has some really practical advice. Did he talk to any other cybersecurity experts that you found helpful?
He did, and one thing they all agreed on was how crucial it is to stay ahead of the game when it comes to cybersecurity threats. Things are always changing, so businesses can't afford to get complacent.
So it's not a set it and forget it approach to security.
Definitely not. Those experts emphasize the importance of always monitoring, checking for weaknesses, and keeping your security systems up to date. They also stress the importance of having multiple layers of security working together. Things like firewalls, intrusion detection systems, antivirus software, multi-factor authentication, all of it working in tandem.
It's like having a security system for your security system. Makes sense.
Right.
What about the human side of security? What do they have to say about that?
That's a great point. They all agreed that training employees and making them aware of security risks is essential. People can either be your strongest asset or your weakest link when it comes to security.
So even with all the tech in place, you still need to teach people how to be safe online and spot potential threats.
Absolutely. Security awareness training is a must for any organization that wants to minimize their risk.
It seems like we've covered a lot about security. I'm ready to go back to SharePoint and Power Apps for a bit. Before the break, we were talking about customizing SharePoint lists and libraries. Let's dive into some more details about that.
Okay. We talked about adding and changing columns, but there's a whole other level of customization you can do with views. Views let you display list data in a way that makes the most sense for you and your team. You can filter, sort, and group data to make custom views that show just the information you need.
So if I work on a project, I could make a view that only shows the tasks I'm responsible for, sorted by due date.
Exactly. And if your lists have dates, you can use calendar or Gantt views to see the data over time. Those are super helpful for planning events or keeping track of project milestones.
It's all about making the data work for you, not the other way around.
Exactly. And then there's Power Apps, which takes customization to a whole new level. With Power Apps, you can make custom forms for your SharePoint lists that are so much better and easier to use than the standard ones.
So instead of being stuck with what comes out of the box, I can create forms that are specific to the way I work and the workflows I need.
Exactly. You can add all sorts of cool features to your forms, like conditional formatting, fields that change based on other information, and even business logic. You can even have a form that automatically calculates the total cost of an order based on what items are selected, or a form that updates in real time based on what the user types in.
Wow, that opens up so many possibilities for automating things and making sure the data is accurate. And we talked about how Power Automate can be integrated to take those workflows even further.
For sure. Power Automate lets you create these automated processes that connect your custom forms to other things like sending notifications, updating records, or even triggering approvals. It's a game changer for streamlining your work and reducing all that manual stuff.
This is making me think about all the things I do at work. They could be so much easier if I use these tools.
See? That's the best part. The possibilities are endless. And don't forget about the power of metadata in SharePoint libraries. We touched on it earlier, but I can't stress enough how much it can improve how easy it is to find your documents. You don't have to just rely on file names anymore. You can use metadata to categorize and tag your documents based on whatever criteria makes sense.
So if I'm trying to find a specific contract for a particular project, I can just search for the project name or some other relevant metadata instead of digging through folders and hoping for the best.
Exactly. And SharePoint has this cool feature called Managed Metadata that ensures everyone in your organization is tagging things consistently. It's like having a common language that everyone uses so everyone can categorize and search for documents the same way.
That's amazing for collaboration and knowledge sharing. It seems like metadata is the key to getting the most out of those SharePoint libraries.
It really is. And speaking of unlocking potential, let's dive into some of those more advanced customization options for libraries. One really powerful feature is the ability to set up content types. Content types are like templates for different kinds of documents. They let you define specific metadata, workflows, and even templates for documents stored in the same library.
So instead of starting from scratch every time I create a new document, I can use a content type that already has all the right metadata and formatting in place.
Exactly. You could have different content types for contracts, reports, presentations, each with its own set of predefined attributes. It keeps everything consistent and makes creating documents a breeze.
I can see how that would save so much time and help prevent errors. What about document templates themselves? Can I upload those to SharePoint too?
Absolutely. You can upload templates directly to your libraries, which gives people a starting point for commonly used documents. Things like meeting agendas, project plans, or expense reports. It saves everyone time and makes sure everything looks consistent and professional.
Awesome. No more reinventing the wheel every time you need to create a basic document. And it keeps everything looking sharp.
Exactly. And don't forget about versioning and approval workflows. Those are essential for managing document revisions and making sure everything is authorized properly.
Oh, right. Versioning keeps track of all the changes made to documents over time, so you can always revert to a previous version if you need to. And approval workflows make sure that documents are reviewed and approved by the right people before they're finalized.
Precisely. You can use SharePoint's built-in workflows or create your own with Power Automate to match your exact approval processes.
So we have all these amazing customization options, from simple tweaks to more advanced configurations. It seems like the most important thing is to really understand your specific needs and then use these tools to create a system that works perfectly for you.
You nailed it. Don't be afraid to try things out and see what works best for your team. And remember, there are tons of resources available online, like Microsoft's documentation and community forums, to help you figure things out.
Great advice. Now, before we move on to some more real-world examples, I think it's time for a quick break. We'll be right back to explore even more ways that SharePoint Online and Power Apps can totally change your business processes for the better.
Sounds good. Can't wait.
And we're back, ready to wrap up this deep dive into optimizing your business processes with SharePoint Online and Power Apps. It's been quite a journey, from those real-world applications to all that security stuff to some seriously cool customization tricks.
I know, right? It's amazing how much these tools are changing things for businesses big and small. It's not like you need a huge IT budget or a whole team of developers anymore to create these efficient custom solutions.
Yeah, it really feels like that whole democratization of technology thing is happening right in front of us. What really struck me was the flexibility. We've seen how SharePoint and Power Apps can be used for just about anything, from simple task management to super sophisticated process automation. And it all seems so much more approachable than I thought it would be.
I think that's so important. It's not about making people feel overwhelmed with all this tech jargon. It's about giving them the power to solve problems and make their workflows better, no matter what their technical skills are. And because you can keep tweaking these tools, you're not stuck with a rigid system.
Right. You can start small, test things out, make adjustments, and build on your solutions over time. It's a much more agile way to do things than traditional software development.
Yeah.
Of course, we can't forget about security. It's great to streamline processes, but you have to do it safely, especially these days.
Absolutely. Those insights from Bert Blevins' videos were spot on. He didn't just give us theory, he gave us actual steps anyone can take to improve their security. From those detailed instructions on rotating passwords in Linux to the clear guidance on setting up multi-factor authentication, it's all about giving people the knowledge they need to protect themselves.
And I was particularly interested in his discussion of cloud identity discovery. It's like you're uncovering all those hidden vulnerabilities that often get missed in cloud environments.
It is. As businesses move more and more of their operations to the cloud, it's so important to know who has access to what. Tools like Delinea and those practices Bert talked about provide really practical ways to manage those risks and make sure that sensitive information is locked down.
It's a great reminder that security needs to be a part of everything you do online, especially as we move more and more to the cloud. So for our listeners who are feeling inspired and want to take action, what's the first step? Where should they start on this journey of optimization and security?
I'd say start by figuring out where the problems are in your current processes. What's frustrating? What's taking up too much time? What could be more efficient? Once you know what the challenges are, you can start looking at how SharePoint and Power Apps can help.
It's all about working smarter, not harder.
Right.
Use these tools to get rid of those tedious, repetitive tasks and free up your time for the important stuff.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment. Start small, build a prototype, get feedback, and keep improving. The beauty of these tools is that they let you do things that way. And there are so many resources available online, like Microsoft's documentation and those community forums, that can guide you.
It's like you said earlier, technology is becoming more and more accessible. You don't have to be a coding whiz to use these tools and make real improvements in your business. It's all about taking that first step and being open to learning new things.
I completely agree. And as these tools continue to get better, the possibilities are endless. So stay curious, stay informed, and embrace the potential of SharePoint Online and Power Apps to completely transform the way you work.
I love that. That's a great way to wrap things up. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've learned some valuable things and are feeling inspired to take your business processes to the next level. Until next time, keep learning, keep innovating, and keep diving deep.